Welcome to EDGEWISE Weekends. I probably should take my microphone off of mute so that you all can actually hear me. So right away, I want to say thank you for those of you who are joining me on this Sunday evening. As you all know, at this point, most of my lives are essentially unscheduled. So if you're interested in following, you probably should subscribe. You probably should ring that bell. I am going to work towards an actual real publishing schedule. And hopefully we're going to start with Fridays at 4 p.m. because as you all may or may not know, if you caught the last live, I used to be a big fan of the 4 p.m. live that Scott used to do, Scott Baucom. And since he moved to us, I was going to say Australia. I don't know why I said that. Since he moved to Alaska, which is where he actually moved to, we haven't seen any Scott lives, and I'm kind of missing that. So I'm going to try to fill that gap at the moment. The other thing that you all should know is that, of course, I'm a big fan of Uncensored, which is a Brandon Washington and a Jarrell podcast that they put together every single Friday at 11 a.m. Central. Most of the time, I can join. Sometimes work gets in the way, and that makes it very difficult. So I'm going to try to fit my show somewhere in between everything that I am a fan of and everything that I enjoy, in an effort to make sure that I have a voice, and then I share this voice with those of you who have been incredible supporters of the channel over the years, because I appreciate you all. And EDGEWISE is essentially where we talk about the bold side of business. We talk about strategy, and we talk about having that creative edge, where you need that creative edge to be able to compete and win in today's digital world. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carlos Quintero, and I am the CEO and creative director at MediaOnQ. I'm going to say this, and this is going to sound really bold, but this is sort of the way that life operates inside of this company. And if you saw some of the lives where I was essentially talking about how we were going to rebrand this channel and why it is that we were going to call it EDGEWISE instead of just Carlos Quintero or MediaOnQ or any of the other things that I've done over the years, is because I want to make sure that I give back to the community that has given so much to me. You all may not completely understand what this means, but your feedback, your comments, the fact that somebody else is on the other side and is receiving this, and at some point finding that little nugget that could help them work out a situation, is the type of feedback that you can't buy. It's the type of feedback that only exists because of community. And you all are clearly a part of this community. And I want to make sure that I keep my promise back to you and give back to this community. So I'll say this. If you create content for clients, I don't care if you're a videographer, if you're an editor, if you're a social media strategist, if you're a marketing professional, I don't really care what your role is. But if you create content for a client, what we are going to cover today will change how you position your services. I know that's pretty bold, right? But what you need to understand is that when we, all of us as creators, as creatives, as people that need to think on the fly and in the moment, or come up with an idea that can be sold to a client, what our job really is to pivot, to adjust, to come up with new ways of, this is going to sound salesy, and if you've never had sales training, this might actually blow your mind a little bit. But essentially, the concept of sales training, all of it, and what I'm describing as our responsibility as creatives when we are talking to clients who sell B2B, as in business to business, or B2C, as in business to consumer. The more we understand, this is the key, how to overcome objections. Okay, think of that concept, overcoming objections. The more we can prepare for what it is that may come our way and how we deal with it. This is why I'm saying that if you create content for a client, and I don't really care what your role is, what we are going to cover today is going to change the way that you position your services. We do this at MediaOnQ. I was going to say all day, every day, but we don't do it all day, every day. But we do it on a very regular basis where we are constantly training ourselves. It doesn't matter if you're a project manager, if you are a creative director, if you are a client-facing analyst. It doesn't really matter who you are, what you are. Everyone is trained on how to overcome objections. And if I could, at some point, invite my VP of sales, sweetheart, love of my life, Roberta Quintero, who is my wife, to participate in one of these meetings or one of these lives, or even a podcast if she only wants to do audio. She is an expert at this. She understands how to instantly create a connection with a client in a way that makes the client comfortable enough, trust enough to allow her to run the campaigns or the marketing or the promotion without questioning it. Today, more specifically, we're going to be talking about Instagram. Many of you who understand marketing, who are trying to promote yourselves, who are attempting to work with other clients, maybe already are working with other clients in a marketing capacity, already understand that Instagram just flipped the script. And what I mean by that is that in the past, social media channels, it doesn't really matter which social media channel, they've all been sort of walled gardens, right? Where Instagram is going to want you to stay on Instagram for as long as you can stay on Instagram so that Instagram can make the most amount of money. Same is true for YouTube, same is true for Facebook, same is true for LinkedIn, same is true for TikTok, and you name it. All of the social media platforms want individuals to spend the majority of time on their own platform and away from other platforms. In other words, they want you to favor their platform so that they have the largest amount of both audience, retention time, and ability to serve ads. Because serving an ad allows any one of these channels to make revenue. Purchasing from any one of these channels, in this case Instagram, gives Instagram an additional incentive to show that ad more often, because Instagram is going to make a commission off of those ads. But now they've essentially decided to partner with the largest digital ad provider in the world. If you have an Instagram account, and if your Instagram account is a professional account, not a personal account, your content is now available to be found on Google search. That's true for Reels, carousels, and of course, feed post. And as you might know, you can't post a single image on an Instagram feed anymore. Now it needs to be multiple images. And all of these assets can now appear directly in Google search results. That means that the content that you are already making can go way beyond likes and way beyond views. It can now drive search results. It can drive leads, and it can drive real ROI, which is return on investment for your clients. That's mind-blowing. Because this is actually a massive opportunity for every single one of you who are creators, who want to bring more value and stand out from the competition while you charge more for what you are able to deliver. And today, I want to break this down exactly how to do this for you. Because this is how I want to contribute back to this amazing community. So, where do we start? It is very important. I'm going to take a step back. Over the past couple of weeks, months, maybe even longer than months, we've all seen a significant transition. A transition in this video creation space where a lot of what you and I looked up to, I'm gonna just call it, the industry standard type of career path, has evolved in a way that is more negative than positive. On Facebook and so on, and I don't want to really harp on the negatives here, but we've seen plenty of how do I say this? Video production businesses that have decided they're going to stop. They're going to cease operations. They're going to sell their assets and so on. At Cinegear, you saw many, if you attended, you saw many people who are finding themselves in between jobs. And that is really because the industry where we had the high end, as in, I'm calling it high end, which is really not true. And I'll explain this in a second here. But the multi-billion, $1 million productions, with big studios, those were the top tier people like you and I. And then there were the individual solo creators that are starting out on their own with maybe a mirrorless camera and finding clients to actually do work for. That might have been the complete opposite end of that spectrum. And then there were all of us in the middle that we might have done commercial production, we might have done national campaigns, may have done really what I would call higher end production work that is maybe not specific to house of worship, but more on the commercial space. And then, of course, there are the house of worship sections, which are sometimes really, really high-end productions. If we're all being really transparent here. And that middle is has sort of shrunk or started to collapse, or in some markets, completely collapsed. And that leaves people like you and I in a situation where we have to adapt and we have to understand how we might be able to compete, which is then leading to this live stream, which is really about providing more than just, I have a camera and you have an idea. I can capture this idea with my camera and then make it easy for you to distribute it. We're now at the point where if you're running a video production business, and it doesn't matter if you're a one-man shop, a five-man shop, or a larger organization that maybe does marketing, kind of like mine, right? Where, we have 73 people on staff. It's our job to understand the business vertical, the business objectives, the business the reasons why someone would want to buy and would not choose to buy that product or that service, and then present these ideas to the decision makers. And by the way, if you all are interested in this conversation about how to reach and talk to decision makers, we can have a dedicated conversation about that. I call it the top-down approach. It's kind of self-explanatory. If you start at the top, it's very difficult to fail, because if they don't have time for you, you can go right down the list and say, I just talked to your boss and they suggested I contact you. Moving on. It's our job to bring forward ideas, obviously in the wheelhouse that we're able to provide, in a way that allows them to see continuous success so that we can continue to make a living. But more importantly, make a living that is sustainable in the long term. You see, there is a big difference between saying my day rate for a video project is $3,500 versus this is your objective. This is the package that we're putting together. And yes, you are going to be investing $65,000, $75,000, but this gets you a campaign that covers you for 6 months. You see where I'm going with it? And that's really what I kind of want to talk about today. And hopefully, it's something that you all are kind of interested in. And if you're not, let me know in the comment and we could end the live stream. Again, my whole purpose is just to keep with my brand promise. All right, so I have some notes, and I'm going to make sure that I reference my notes where I can to make sure that I don't miss any content here. So let's start with why it is that it matters that Instagram is now available on Google results. We all know that Facebook is an awesome place for friends and family, right? So this is where a lot of people, it doesn't matter if you're a business owner, if you're a marketing professional or whatever, this is where if you want to catch up with friends and family, you're going to spend a bit of time. Instagram, by default, becomes an extension of that. So if you're on Facebook, likely you're also on Instagram and you're spending some time there. The real difference, of course, now is that if you understand how to structure your content for Instagram, you can now be found outside of Instagram. Whereas before, you were hoping to make it into the, new and noteworthy discoverable section, or when you click on discover, hopefully you popped up in that grid. Now you can actually structure your content, whatever it is that you're going to be shooting, capturing, and so on, in a way that might help someone who is actively searching for a solution, a how-to, or inspiration on a problem that they might be trying to solve, which is perfectly in line with those people who are serving or have businesses that offer B2B solutions, business to business solutions, or business to consumer solutions. So if I give you an example, right? And it doesn't matter where you are in the country. If, say, you decided you want to put in a pool into your backyard. Well, most places, unless you live out where nothing is governed, will require that you have a fence around your pool to make sure that no one accidentally walks into your pool and ends up drowning. So the benefit or the content that maybe you would want to create for, say, a fence type business is where you create content on Instagram that makes it crystal clear and super easy on how to identify your property lines, so that when you hire the fence company, they install the fence on the exact place where they need to, where you're not violating your property line, and then end up with an extra expense where someone asks you to take down the fence and then you need to re-erect it. And by the way, this example that I just shared happens to be an incredibly high search term, like super high density in terms of how many monthly searches happen with someone trying to figure out where their property line is. So if you work with businesses where the property line is in fact something that is important, essentially anything with construction, and particularly anything like a fence contractor, these are pieces of content that you can then leverage. And you can make sure that they show up in search if you understand locality. In other words, if I have a fence company and I'm in Fargo, North Dakota, which is where I am, and I title my video, my content that I'm going to be publishing, because it doesn't have to be a video, right? It could be a one of those multiple stills graphics where you slide through, so a carousel. And you identify how to find your property line in Fargo, North Dakota. And I am in Fargo, North Dakota, and I am now on Google, and I type in how to find my property line, I'm going to see that search result. That's the power of understanding the business objective, how to make your clients money, and then how to leverage making your clients money to create content based on what you're able to offer in a way that allows you to thrive as much as your clients. And you can take that example across the board. It doesn't matter if you work with attorneys, if you work with jewelry companies, if you work with chiropractors, if you work with dentists, if you work with oil change places like Jiffy Lube or whatever. Every single franchise, every single owner, every single person who has essentially their livelihood on the line and is attempting to capture clients within a local network, this strategy, creating a pitch sheet that allows you to very easily say, fill in 2 or 3 objectives with who your target audience is, and then let me come back with 5 ideas on how it is that you can dominate in this space, is the power that you have as a content creator, as a videographer, as a marketer. We're going to be creating those assets and making them available as a free download to all of you. They should be in line by the middle of the week, and you can find them at MediaOnQ.com. These are the exact strategies that we are using to make sure that we go after new business, new customers, repeat business, and repeat customers in a way that allow us to bring additional value behind what it is that we already know how to do well, which might be storytelling, capturing in a visual format, and then making sure that it is packaged in a way that can be delivered to the appropriate channels. And I think that if you find yourself where you are not busy 5 days out of the week, take 2 hours a week and create a way to make yourself more visible to people who need your services. Because one thing that has happened no matter what, and it doesn't matter if AI is involved or not involved and so on, is that creating visuals, which is what we do, is still the number one vehicle to deliver a message. This is why a company like mine, which is not huge, right? Get small teams and so on, is able to run multiple video teams daily. And we stay busy above 90% of our capacity. And also, what you all are seeing right now is sort of what happens on weekends. We just kind of come up with a way to make sure that we keep feeding that wide end of the funnel to make sure that our leads stay healthy, which I think is really important. Because let's be honest, if all we ever had to do was just wait for the phone to ring, this would be a very different type of world, and we would all be making a lot less money, if we're honest. I'm going to look at my notes to make sure that I haven't missed anything I wanted to say here. Okay, I wrote this down earlier, and this is actually, this is what my team is going to hear tomorrow. So you all are hearing it before my team, unless my team is live streaming, which I'm going to guess, and hopefully they're not, because it's Sunday. But if you could show your clients that your content the content you're able to produce is ranking on Google, how would you change what you charge for that content? If you have a comment and you want to maybe drop that in the chat, I'd be interested to see what it is that you all think. Because you see, at this point, and with the way that more and more channels are creating partnerships, it is flipping the script for everyone. It is creating a brand new playbook for every creator. And it is leveling the playing field from any one of us who thought we might be cinematographers, professionals, whatever. At the end of the day, we are all creators. And the more we understand about our craft, and the more we understand about the client goals, in other words, if you can help your clients make money, you're going to make more money. That's really what I'm saying here. Downtime should really be a time to sort out how to invest yourself more deeply into the industries that you are already serving. Because the more you understand about that industry, the more from an outsider looking in, you can provide valuable feedback in a way that they can't see it because they are in it. And you can charge more and bring more value and create more recurring income. On the technical side, and we're gonna draft up a blog post on MediaOnQ that you all can learn and maybe take a look at here. But essentially, there are a lot of things that play a role as to what shows up, when it shows up, why it shows up, what's different between, say, Google video SEO versus Instagram SEO, and so on. Like keyword-driven captions, that's hot. That is more important on Instagram than it is on YouTube, just because of the nature of the way that things are. Metadata and alt text, that matters. Hashtags, in the past, we would all create whatever we were saying about hashtags, and then at the very end, about the content, and at the very end, we would add our hashtags. Hashtags should be integrated into what we're saying. Because the way that the Instagram algorithm is looking at it is it's saying, oh, I should index this based on this hashtag because this is relevant and related to this other thing. It kind of matters. And again, all of this is going to be detailed in our blog post that will be available this week at MediaOnQ.com. It is not there yet because I am still writing it and I am the author of it. I'm also going to be creating a LinkedIn article around this because I think it is that important for B2B as well as B2C clients. And then again, more importantly, to create a bigger differentiator between MediaOnQ and the other 150 billion people that say they do the same thing I do. I want to be the first to bring this up so that when somebody else says or echoes something similar to me, they are now following what I'm saying rather than doing what I'm saying. And I'm going to use real stats from real clients because we have a ton of clients. And we take a scientific approach to every single one of their campaigns in a way that makes sure that they choose us time and time again for every single campaign moving forward. I think that that is really, really, really important. And the biggest takeaway for you here is that this is your opportunity to upsell yourself as a strategist, not just as a videographer or content creator. Instead of selling a reel for Instagram or a reel package, you are selling a reel that also drives Google search visibility. That's not a $200 deliverable. That's a premium content asset. It is an evergreen asset that continues to give the clients money back time after time after time because you help them create the absolute best possible strategy for their product or their service, and it is going to pay in dividends, bringing them back to their website to buy whatever it is that they have to offer. I think that that is the biggest key. And if you teach your clients how to further quantify the value by following how that content is performing in your Google Analytics, it's game over. You are already doing 90% more than every other videographer out there. You are setting yourself up as a business partner, not the guy with the camera, the videographer, the person who is going to step in and only take direction and have nothing back to give. That is how you create value for yourself. And then also make sure that you are building a sustainable business. And the longer you do this within any industry vertical, or, you know, I think on YouTube, everybody calls them a niche, right? So it doesn't matter what that niche is or industry vertical is. The longer you do it, the more you understand about it, the more value you can bring, and the more you're able to earn from that client. At some point, it turns into you having institutional knowledge, which is something that only employees have about that company. You understand their history. You understand their shortcomings. You understand their benefits. You understand their footprint. You understand their ideal client. You understand which messages worked. And when you see something that is colliding with that, you're able to stop it before they spend the money on failing. I know this is a little abstract, and this is the reason why I'm not done with my blog post. Because every idea is floating in my head at light speed, and it's going in so many directions. And I need to rein them in a way that truly brings value to those of you who choose to, and will choose to read and download the assets from the blog. But that's what we're attempting to accomplish here. So the toolkit and the blog post will drop this week. My goal is by Thursday. And hopefully some of this all over the place conversation that I just had with you all sticks in some way. So Chris Flores, first off, thank you for stopping by the live. And then he asked a question. So what type of video or what are you making that gets ranked in Google? So I'm going to make sure that in the blog post, we use a lot of examples as well as what the metadata looks like on the video to make sure that it gets ranked. But essentially, if we go back to that fence contractor that I was talking about, right? So if somebody is trying to sell fences, so they are a fence installation company, and you create content on how to find your property line for that fence contractor, and without exaggerating, and I would love to challenge everyone who watches this video to do this for their fence contractor client. I promise you, they will see an increase higher than 4,000 unique visitors to their website specific to that content. And the key, of course, with Instagram is that whatever video makes it on Instagram needs to be embedded into their website. That is how we create backlinks to that video and how we create additional leverage for that video to rank higher in search results. And you always want to create localized content. So if your client is in Fort Worth, Texas, then how do you find your property line in Fort Worth, Texas is the long-term or long phrase SEO keyword and keyword phrase that needs to be in your video and addressed in your video and answered in your video and embedded into your website. And yes, Chris, I know it's vague and I know it's preachy. It's really SEO technical is what it is. And we're leveraging everything we know about marketing to make more money shooting video is really what we're attempting to accomplish here. Hey, James, good to see you, man. So that's really all I got. And maybe I should have waited till I had the blog post and had better, more defined examples. But this video is probably not for everyone. This is just for those of us who are interested in the hustle of this video production business in 2025, where markets are shrinking and other opportunities are opening up. And I've always been a fan of being on the bleeding edge of everything to make sure that I have the most amount of separation from my competitors, which is why I'm sharing what I'm sharing with you today as I'm organizing my rah-rah speech for my teams tomorrow. Yeah, that's all I got. And if nobody has any questions, because yeah, I was probably pretty vague, I will catch up with you guys next week. Hopefully, well, for sure, Friday at 4 p.m. But maybe if I'm able to organize this in a way that is more succinct and maybe more specific to examples that you all might be able to work with, maybe I'll do another live and then actually share with you what those examples are earlier in the week. So, Chris, this is actually a good question. So short version is that we like to play a role in as many parts of our client's workflow as we can. So in a perfect world, we offer to do it for the client. Obviously, we bill for it, right? So it's part of our bill. Because if we are managing their content, placing their content, shooting their content, editing their content, creating their scripts, setting up their shoot dates, and so on, we're not only are we able to make money on all of the things I just said, but they're also not calling on other competitors to help them accomplish those things. It's tough if you're a very small company or a one-man person. And maybe that's something that, you would sort out and work out with another smaller creator type or marketing person, where the combination of you two can offer a bigger bundle for your clients. But the more you're able to control with your clients, I call it golden handcuffs, right? If your client is relying on you for a large amount of things, then your client's likely not going to go find something else to do or someone else to do it. And if you're able to do it in a way that your client is constantly making money, your client is going to want to keep coming back to that well and saying, what else can we do? What else can we do? What else can we do? So Mr. B says, eyeballs are one thing, but conversions are another. Do you work on the entire funnel or just the top? So at MediaOnQ, we are a full service marketing company. So we do the whole thing. I mean, we will build apps if we have to support a marketing campaign. We'll build landing pages, websites, and so on to support a marketing campaign. And yes, we follow through the entire process of that funnel to the point where our teams, mind you, it's not a one person doing it, right? So like, I'm just the creative director and the CEO. I have a sales team. I have a client management team. I have people that are dedicated only to graphics and media placement and so on. So if you're trying to do it all yourself, it becomes a little bit tougher. But if you have the team in place and someone is paying you, we're able to, just being transparent here, we are able to charge a retainer for just the whatever the client agrees to, allotted hours dedicated to marketing related tasks within any one of our groups. With a new client, it's a little more difficult to understand sort of what that might mean. So those we typically take 3 months at a time, where we do sort of an exploratory thing. But for clients that we've been working with them for 11 years, we already know this is their busy season, this is their preseason, this is their low season, and so on. And we're able to keep coming up with ways of either expanding some of these seasons or shrinking some of the low side of the seasons, or coming up with different ways of making additional sales outside of maybe what they traditionally did in the past. So it's it's a little bit of both. For those clients who hire us as a full service agency, yes, we work with them on truly understanding their deliverable and who their client persona is. And then making sure that the messages that they want to share are in line with that persona. We create the content, as in the videos, the shorts, the reels, the long form podcast, the landing pages, the blog post for their websites, and then also the ads that then support all of this to bring more eyeballs and essentially create more conversions or grow their email list and so on. So you're right. It's more complex, and it is not easy to do it if you're doing it on your own. Because if you're doing it on your own, you're probably limited to maybe working with, I'm going to say, 3 companies a month. If you're awesome, like exceptionally awesome, maybe you could work with 5 companies a month, but that would probably be your limit, and you're likely working 12 to 14 hours a day. And that would suck, honestly. But if you are able to partner with someone, or if your significant other is also in a related field or a creative field of some sort, and they can help out, it's a good way for you to build that business, build that client base, and then expand beyond just shooting content. And I think for all of us, given what we've seen and how the market can shift, it's probably not a bad idea. Okay, Chris, we're going to be I will work on this specifically, Chris, and I will get back to you, because I think that that's actually a really good area. Academia is, it's $1 billion business. I don't know how to say this any other way, because there are so many nonprofits and so many, I'm going to leave it alone, but I'm just going to say there are lots of people making money because of schools, training, and their association to accredited schools, colleges, and so on. So, yes, and I have 3 clients that fit that exact criteria, and I will be able to share with you in-depth strategy on what has worked for us, what failed, and what we are working on to continue to enhance what it is that we're doing. You're right. It's tough if you're alone. Clients don't just want videos now. They want conversations. Yeah. So they will seek a marketing company over a videographer every time now. Mr. B, I'm not sure that it would be every time, but it is. Okay. I don't know. I'm old. Okay. And if some of you have heard of the name Michael Ellis, trainer, very smart guy. But I'm going to remember from way back at the start of my career. And one of the best things that ever happened to me, and it was not intentional, it just happened. Because my role was COO at the time for this organization. But the individual who owned the company made sure that every single person, regardless of their role in the organization, went through sales training. And I think that that is incredibly valuable in a lot of different ways. But the most important piece of it for me, and one thing that I will always remember, is that you are always judged by the depth of your questions. And you can't have any depth in your question if you don't understand the topic that is being discussed. And when a client wants a video, they don't want a video, they want a solution to a challenge or a problem or a situation that they find themselves in. And being able to understand that we are actually solving or finding a way to circumvent a problem, and ideally in a way that results in revenue for the client, that is what being my job is to shoot whatever is on this script is, or the shot list is not about. That person, in my opinion, will become extinct, if not become like a minimum wage type of position. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I mean it in the way that everyone has to evolve, and you have to be willing on doing more than just understanding the technical know-how of how to operate that piece of equipment that is going to help you tell that story. Mr. B, thanks, Carlos. This is the content that's missing in our industry, all about the latest cameras when we actually need to run our businesses. I mean, it's tough, but we're all on the same plane, right? We're all in that same position where we're all trying to figure out how to make sure that the craft that we love, the things that we really find fulfilling in our lives, don't become obsolete or become something that can be replaced by a prompt in AI. And I think that relationships cannot be replaced by AI, because AI is the world's fastest echo chamber that also has access to all of the world's knowledge. But if you don't understand how to tap into that world knowledge, you're essentially talking to a yes man. And a yes man is not going to help your business grow. And this is where we all fall into now, where if we are operating the camera, if we are taking stills, if we are shooting videos, if we're telling stories, whatever it is that we're doing, it is our job to move the client's agenda forward in a way that allows them to be successful so that we can continue to be successful. Chris, I'm not sure that I could answer this question in this video, but I am going to say that given that you already decided that you're working within a vertical, and you know that all of those education type of clients require new people to want to learn, your job is to understand where that client base is, the people that are actually going to pay the money to attend these institutions or sign up for those courses and so on. Where do they spend their time? And then dig deep and understand what they are missing, what they cannot get from anywhere else, and then tie a way for your client, your schools, and so on, to say, if this is missing, It's because you don't have us. This is what we ensure, that when you participate in our school, you attend our school, you graduate from our school, you take our course, and so on. When you leave here, this area that you might have been doubtful about, you will be the authority in it. That would be step number one. Step number two, if, assuming you're not working by yourself, is to understand what the people around you, what their jobs are, and what their deliverables are. In other words, how they're being measured. Because at that point, you're then able to come up with ways of using your own skills to help support somebody else's evaluation. And I know that's really open-ended, but I think you're going to appreciate some of the examples that I share with some of my academia clients and my nonprofit clients that offer coursework, graduate programs, and so on, to maybe help you understand how we position them, the messaging, and then how we attract new faces and new individuals to come and participate. And then I'll make sure that that's included in the blog post. And I'm glad that you're making these comments, because this is actually really helpful. Because the reality is that I'm making this blog post not to help my competitors. I'm making this blog post to help my community. Because at the end of the day, you're all really the only part that matters to me, besides my clients and my team. So yeah, we've been at this for over an hour. I did not think it was going to be this long. Hopefully some of this was helpful. Be on the lookout, MediaOnQ.com. Check out the EDGEWISE blog. It's just blog on MediaOnQ.com. The new post will be published hopefully before Wednesday. And if I'm able to consolidate that into a cohesive video that doesn't go off in 10 different directions like this video, I will make sure that I do another live, or we pre-record it and then publish it on my channel so that you all can benefit. Hopefully, again, this was something useful, helpful to somebody, and I will catch up with you all next week. Thank you for stopping by and checking out the channel on Sunday, and you all have a good night and take care.